Thank you, everyone, for joining. As always, welcome to the Graph Builders Office Hours, where we try to level up people's knowledge on building subgraphs and substreams and pretty much everything in the graph ecosystem from a builder perspective. Just as a reminder, this is going to be recorded, so just keep that in mind. And this week, we have Simone from EdgeNode. Really excited for this one, which is going to be on the topic of subgraph composition, which is a rather new workshop that Simone created. And without further ado, I think we can hand it over to Simone. He's the star of the show. And thank you. Welcome, Simone.
Hey, hello everybody. Good to be back. And thanks for the invitation. So, I'm especially excited also for some guests like Sahat is in the he's from the guild and he's in the chat and corrects me if I'm wrong. So what I'm presenting today is like a talk that I prepared for Datapalooza in Istanbul, or a workshop, so to say. I did it there in 1 hour, but I think it was too little time. So that's why we set it up for 2 hours. But I also hope that we might be able to do some even kind of working forward on that project, because I actually have some questions about the tools. And we can probably then resolve these questions together. As always, I'd like to have this in a workshop style. So whenever you have a question, something is unclear, or I should dig into a certain topic a little bit more, please feel free to unmute yourself and interrupt me. The chat, I tried to have an eye on the chat, but it's a little bit hard with doing a presentation, live coding, and seeing the chat. For those that, Kevin, if you want, like if someone writes in the chat, maybe you can just open the mic.
Absolutely. And I just shared the repo for your subgraph composition too in the chat.
Yes. All right. Then let's start with the presentation. Let's see if all my private keys are hidden. Okay. Boom. Do you see my screen? Okay, all right.
It looks good.
Nice. I don't need Twitter, so cool. All right. Okay, let's start. And we record this already, right? I don't need to record on my computer.
Correct. Yeah, this will be recorded.
Nice. All right, cool. Let's get started. So this is my presentation. Hi, my name is Simon. I do developer relations for EdgeNode, working on the graph. It's a bit hard to raise your hand here, but initially the question is who knows what GraphQL is? And then if you don't know, the GraphQL is this language that we send queries to subgraphs. I really love GraphQL, and it's also one thing that the guild is particularly known for all the GraphQL tooling that they're writing. Very cool stuff. Then, who has already written a custom GraphQL resolver? This question is really kind of to differentiate between people that know a little bit about GraphQL or send GraphQL queries, and the juniors, so to say, and the pros that write also custom GraphQL servers. Because if you write the GraphQL server in your own schema, then at some point we end up writing GraphQL resolvers, and that is this one. And then even more advanced topic on top of that is schema stitching. That's a technique that combines multiple GraphQL schemas into one. Usually that's a manual process, and it's not the easiest thing to do, but very, very powerful. And that's also then a little bit simplified with GraphQL Mesh. Also a tool from the guild. Yeah, that's just good to give you that overview. And then, why can't I? Okay. So, when we talk about the architecture of a dApp with the graph, we see on top is the front end. that sends queries to the subgraph, which is the indexing layer, and the subgraph indexes data from the context. So we can think about these layers, and then on the bottom we have the blockchain. This design comes from marketing or from our design team. I would say like a little bit more nerdy in a schema. We can see it like this. We have the front end that queries the subgraph, and then the subgraph queries the smart contract. So, and also what's important about that slide is that usually, more like currently, a subgraph can only query one blockchain, one subgraph per blockchain, but a subgraph can, or not query, one subgraph indexes one blockchain, but it can index multiple smart contracts on the same blockchain. That's very important, because like that was initially, like when the graph was founded, there was only Ethereum around, and so that it was pretty simple, or only Ethereum was supported. So it was pretty simple. Okay, we have subgraph that indexes Ethereum. Fast forward, we now live in this multi-chain world, and I personally even anticipate for the next year that we will see a lot more of L2s coming up. There is this whole thing about the so-called dApp chains. I think that Cosmos, in the Cosmos ecosystem, but also Poco ecosystem was a little bit initially already set up like this, and now it seems that Ethereum also transitions like in this direction with the rollups. So the reality is that we see more blockchains, which then are but combined into one front end or data science application. So that is also, like initially it was only about front end, but we see more and more other data requirements, like data scientists, that people want to kind of get the data and have some insights, some intel, maybe feed some trading bots, some oracles that get data from the graph. So it's not only about front end, like really it's the different data approaches. And then what we end up is like having multiple subgraphs. Like sometimes we have the same subgraph that is just like copy pasted over to different chains. So for example, Uniswap contracts, they look exactly the same on all the chains that they are deployed to. So they can also just copy paste the subgraph usually over. But it can also be more complex that there are like actual multi-chain protocols that have like something on Ethereum Mainnet, but something going on an L2 or maybe on multiple L2s. So that all that kind of system architecture can get very complex. Also, the idea is that not only one subgraph, so that there are other subgraphs. So let's say a good example would be the ENS subgraph, where more often than not we want to kind of resolve names to to addresses, ENS names to addresses, and vice versa. So that's there's a subgraph for that from ENS. So we probably want to use that also in our application. But yes, so what do we do? How can we do this? Because we learned initially we have one subgraph per chain. So this is actually where the graph client comes in. That was one of the initial problem statements that the guild, when onboarded into the graph ecosystem as a core dev, I worked on, and they came up with this beautiful thing called the graph client. Like everybody says it's a data layer for Web3, but I'll show you like how the data layer in terms of the guild or the graph client is imagined. So a very similar setup as before. On top we have front end that queries the graph client, but the graph client, you see, it sits between the graph and front end, so it's in between. What here is enabled is actually a cool feature. It's called live queries. It's something that the guild has specified, and it's already on the forum discussed, to bring this natively into the graph node. But for now, we can have that same feature emulated with the graph client. So that's pretty cool. So that's already kind of a reason why to use the graph client. That's more cool stuff, but that's already a reason. The next thing that we can do with the graph client is we can combine multiple subgraphs. So that's what's happening here. So we can have that setup that I had 2 slides before, multiple blockchains that are indexed by multiple subgraphs, all combined in one graph client. That happens under the hood here. It happens schema stitching with GraphQL Mesh, but from the front end, as far as the front end is concerned, it's one single GraphQL API that is queried. So that's that gives like a pretty nice separation of concerns, in my opinion. Yeah, we could even like use the graph client for a dApp that doesn't use the graph. We could set the graph client in between JSON RPC and the front end, but like, why should we do that? I'm not just saying like that. I wanted to say the graph client is a very flexible tool that could also, that could also be used for, let's say, mutations, and also block tracking would be a thing, so that like the graph client knows about like when a new block is produced, and according to that one maybe sends a new query to the graph. So that would also be a possibility. We see also like here the graph client, because it's written in TypeScript, runs in the front end. So we are still in this idea of a fully decentralized app, so that the whole stack is decentralized. Front ends are easily being decentralized, not just uploading the code to IPFS. But I mean, like the reality is nowadays that most stuff that we interact with, we can say maybe it's a Web 2.5 app, so it's not like fully decentralized. So there are some servers or like edge computing and caching going on, which is fine. But here we could move out the graph client architecturally from the front end into such an edge computing setup that helps, let's say, with hiding API keys, or say caching for fast responses, and so on and so forth. Like there's a lot of flexibility here. So you see kind of the TLDR of all these slides is the graph client is a very flexible tool that can live in different setups. So highlights. It's written in TypeScript and JavaScript. I mean, like the Rust people in the group will probably disagree, but like I love TypeScript. And it's a tool that we use in the front end. So like I'm a front end engineer, so like I'm very used to this. Built on top of GraphQL Mesh. That's built on top of schema stitching and so on and so forth. So like it's not like something completely new. It's a tool that the guild built and uses also with other products and customers. So as I said, like we can combine multiple subgraphs and other data sources into one unified schema. We can write customer solvers if we want. We look at that later. It can run in browser, on a server, or even on edge computing. So very flexible in terms of like system architecture. We can have live queries. And yeah, the idea is like use and build the features now that eventually land in the graph node. So that's also a thing like we want to observe with Graph Client is like, how do people combine subgraphs into their front end or into their application, and then maybe start to reproduce these patterns then natively in graph node. That's my big wish that happens eventually. So definitely something that would be cool to see. All right. TLDR, I asked Midjourney to make a nice image here, which basically says standing on the shoulders of giants. I mean, that's what we do in software development or open source anyways, or always, is building on top of very cool stuff. That's what we do here. Nice. Okay, let's go into live coding. Kevin already posted the thing in the chat. Oh. Okay, no questions so far. Is everything clear until now? Does anybody have a question? I see hearts. Thank you, Mike. Okay. Then you could scan that QR code or just follow the link that Kevin posted. So this thing is here.
There is a question real quick. In a few words, can you explain what GraphQL Mesh is?
Yeah.
AI bot for the win.
Okay, and is there GraphQL for etc. Interesting. I mean, it's actually not a bad answer, but I don't know if why does also Q&A. So GraphQL Mesh, guild. Somewhere here. Yeah, this maybe it describes pretty well. So it's a thing that builds on that. Basically, you can configure multiple endpoints. So it can be a gRPC endpoint, a GraphQL endpoint, or REST or whatever, and then it automatically generates like one GraphQL API on top of it, and then Graph Client is more or less a kind of simplification for the GraphQL use case or for the graph use case that builds on top of Mesh. So Mesh by itself is super flexible, and there might be a little bit too much to learn. So like for GraphQL developers using the graph, but Mesh Graph Client is that thing on top. I hope I described it correctly. I see Yassin also joined from the guild, so feel free to correct me in chat if I got it wrong. Yeah, thanks. All right, going back to the presentation. So action plan, what do we do here? I love to work with Scaffold-ETH. So I will just bootstrap a new Scaffold-ETH file. Then I find some subgraphs that I want to query and combine. Then I get the graph API key. I can show you that. And initialize the graph client. That test if graph client works. And then I start to enhance the graph client. Okay. How do we do that? I think I need a terminal here. Do I need to make it bigger? Maybe a little bit. All right. I can basically follow the steps on GitHub. So the first thing is just like npx create ETH latest, which is, it's the new command line from Scaffold-ETH to just scaffold out a new Scaffold-ETH 2 app. For those that don't know Scaffold-ETH, it's from the Build Guild created from Austin Griffith, the developer relations engineer at the Graph Foundation. No, not the Graph, the Ethereum Foundation. The idea is to have like a full stack dApp that battery is included to have a quick start. It's built on top of Next.js. So yeah, I can do Subgraph Composition builders now. Then we can get a Solidity framework. So you see it can be hard at or Foundry. But yeah, because we don't actually only do front-end stuff now, I can just skip that. But if you have one of our smart contracts, why not going here and install packages? Yeah, I don't know who doesn't want to install packages. But while this is going on, I can probably already go into this composition and open my AI editor. It's actually fun, yeah. I'm still not 100% sure like how this is so much better than VS Code with but like the cool kids are all using this. So look, let's have a quick look what's going on here. So you see it's we have a it's just a repo, mono repo. We have packages, and there's just one package in here. It's the Next.js. We have like a root package JSON. For whatever reason, is not formatted now. Now it is. Yeah, that's it. So pretty straightforward. We can basically check if it works. And then do that with the terminal. Can run yarn start. So the cool thing about Scaffold-ETH is like it builds on top of Next.js and Tailwind and there's cool features here, especially to develop contracts. But since we don't have any contracts, like that doesn't make sense much. But like, check it out; it's kind of fun. I think it's a cool starting point. Okay, what are the next steps? So yeah, that should work. So we can navigate, and then very good. Now the next step is to find subgraphs that we want to query. In that example, what I do is like I take the ones from the graph network subgraphs. So I can go here to the graph.com, go to the products, and go to the Graph Explorer. I think I use these tools. Or the graph scan one. I'm not 100% sure which one. Yeah, see, they are not supported. Yeah, for whatever reason, we use the one from GraphScan. They are indexed. So we have two subgraphs. They are both indexed, or that one is a little bit behind, but like we can make the point. Cool. So we have the subgraphs that we want to query. And then we need to find an API key. I can show you that quickly, how that works. So while here we go to the Subgraph Studio, can connect MetaMask, and then sign, and then I'm actually in. And I don't need to create a subgraph. I want to create an API key, so I can create an API key. Give it a name. Yeah, and then add my email, so I have like 1,000 free queries. Well, why that it claim free queries? Maybe they added a. Maybe I already claimed. Yeah. Why is it not working?
Could it be maybe because you've already used that email to get another key for you?
Well, I know. I think I claimed already on that account, and then I removed it so I can show it again. But now that doesn't work anymore. But I'm prepared. I can also just add GRT. Yeah. Why not? Let's add to GRT here. Okay. Within an hour. Anyways, I think we can.
Do you want me to Slack you my key?
Actually, I think maybe I have here one. Maybe that still works. We can try. See. Anyway, so what we need to do is like we have a key. So now we see we have an API key. And now I can go, when I have a subgraph, when I found the subgraph, what I do is like I get the query URL here, copy it, go to my the editor, add it, and then there is this API key placeholder, right? Let's see what happens if I just go with this one. And then we have that. That's the complete new query URL, right? And now I can go to I'm not even sure what happens if I just open it. Yeah, I need to test it. I usually go to a GraphQL online. Paste it here. Okay. So I have that error because I don't, yeah, it's not, let's see, maybe the one, I assume though that one is also drained already. Change.
I just DM'd you my key if you need it.
This is not drained, interesting. Thank you, Kevin. Let's see. Okay, so like we know that endpoint works, right? So we have the Explorer here. Yeah, we can censor stuff, like we can check for subgraphs, ID, metadata, name. Okay, that's a bad example. Anyways, I have better, like, so, you know, like you can explore that thing here. Okay. And place the API key. Okay. Cool. So we have this one endpoint. So now we can go into this folder and add GraphQL as a dependency. Create okay. And add GraphCLI as a dependency. Like a developer dependency, right? And also it's a graph client CLI, like not to be confused with the graph CLI. So the graph CLI is used for subgraph development, while the graph client CLI is used to set up the graph client. Naming is hard. And then we can also already start to create this configuration file. Yeah, it's like the simplest configuration file is this. So I create a new file, name it graph client RC. Yes. And paste it here. We can take that endpoint over from here. Okay, can save. Nice. And I think that's it. Now I can already try to see if my graph client works. Oops. I paste that here. So now, because graph client is installed, I have this graph client CLI command available in Yarn. I can run this search def thing, which spins up the graph client GraphQL thing. So it's cool. I mean, it's different layout than we saw here on the Hasura thing, but basically the same content. So the same schema, just like different vivid. And so we can send the query over. Cool. So far, any questions? Nope. Okay. Yeah, I got it. Okay, so like this is the query. I prepared it. It's actually where is it? A little bit a better one. So we see for whatever reason, like in that subgraph, we need to specify the entity version so that we have the display name in the metadata. But yeah, it's cool. I mean, like we can query for subgraphs on the graph network. How cool is that? Yeah, we should have a named query. So the idea here is like that's a named query. We can also have so-called anonymous queries. Like if we just would remove that one, it still works. It's still a valid GraphQL query, but like the graph client wants to have named queries. You will see that later. Oh, nice, I prepared this one. So what we can do is like we can store the query in a file, basically. That says that so we create a new folder and say, okay, we want to store all our queries, and create a new file called Subgraphs. Yes. And that's it. So I name it subgraph.graphql, and now I can copy paste the query that I created here over. Save it. And I'll simply say in graph client RC that there are the documents, so that I have my queries in that queries folder, like this. And now, when I run Yarn graph client build, it's similar to when you develop subgraphs and you run graph build or graph code gen actually. That now the graph client in the background starts to write into this .graph client folder. And we see there is a schema, but also index with helper functions. So this is all generated code. We see later why this is so awesome actually. Because now what we can do is we can start to send queries from the front end. So I usually try to make as little as changes as possible so we can all follow. What we do here is basically using React hooks to load, to run the GraphQL query, very simple. So we don't use any Apollo or any Urkel or whatever library. We just work with the graph client and GraphQL primitives, so to say. I can import. We can do this, and then I have some imports that that I would need to resolve. But since we are in the copy paste mode, I can just simply do this. And so now I can already log the result. I mean, that's pretty cool. So let's see what happens. Let's open the terminal, reload the thing. Okay, should probably run the development server. Done. Yeah, okay. We don't need that code here anymore, so. See, now that that's happening. For those that are not familiar with React, because of these functions, they can run multiple times. So we see, like initially, we don't see any data, and at some point we start to see data. And here we go. Like we have that data now already available in the front end that we queried. I mean, that was quick. The cool thing actually is when we want to start to display that data, can maybe even remove a little bit more stuff here. I can simply do something like LE or like UL. And then do result dot data dot subgraph. See, all the auto completion is already there because it is fully typed. Subgraph. And I can simply do that. Metadata.display name. See, because like Graph Client generates all these helper functions here, like now I have everything, it's everything typed, everything I have at my fingertips, it auto completes. I don't need to kind of like look at my query and then try to find out like what is this. It's just here. It's pretty cool. And now I refresh and bam, it's here. I think that's pretty amazing. So that's already kind of like very, very cool. So I just remember, I think there's even a simpler way to run this without execute, right? Do we still have the guild people here? Yeah. I tried to find out by myself. So it was like, I think it's something like subgraph query, maybe. I can import it. Oh. Let's see if we find it here. With get SDK, right? Okay, I remember. It's in that examples question SDK exactly, and then yeah. Yes, I think. Let's try it out. And then I can just do execute. No. Ah. Okay, it's a bit simpler, huh? Than that's okay. Yeah, okay, so I can even go with that SDK. I don't know like which one is better. But these are the two options. Now I'd like to hear like Sahaj and Yasin, are you still here? I wonder like what's the better approach here? Do you recommend to use the SDK or do you recommend to use this thing, the execute function? What's the difference? I can go back to that question later.
Hello. Can you hear me?
Yes.
I'm just fixing my headphones. Give me a second. Okay. So for this question, I think so. You usually want to use the SDK in like for the React apps and stuff. You probably want to use the SDK because then you can have like bindings with like React code. Is this all this code can actually hook up into like CodeGen and stuff? Like it's already hooked up to CodeGen. We use the execute function usually for like the Node.js application. So if you're doing on the server side, that's when we prefer like, hey, just use the execute functions. And like you can call the execute directly. But there's no harm. Like usually the SDK is preferred for the client side stuff. I can't hear you. You're muted, someone.
Yeah, what's the difference? Why are there two different functions?
Good question. Is just like one way is like, if you want to extend the capabilities, so that's why we give you like the whole execute function flow. SDK is like everything is pre-generated for you.
Okay. All right.
Because some people prefer having declarative approach. Some people prefer like give me all the functions and I want to do customizations.
Okay. So then the SDK is a simplification that also makes it easier to use, so to say.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. That's good to know. So we are actually correct here. Nice. Thanks for that. Cool. So we are here. We found out that there was like this SDK function, but also the execute function. We are ending up with the same thing. Yes, I want to see what are the next steps. Yeah, we have it in the front end. Nice. We don't use any libraries. We could, like there are examples here. If you're really into Apollo or Oracle or React Query or whatsoever, then there are examples how to hook Graph client directly into it. But I'm, in terms of dependencies, I'm a minimalist. Actually, I always try to kind of get rid of the dependencies that I don't necessarily use, but like that's my own style. Other people have other preferences, and it's all supported. So now we just saw like auto completion and that kind of stuff. But like, where it gets really interesting, I think, is when we say, oh, we actually want to combine multiple subgraphs into one, right? So how do we do this? We have I need to find out which one we already have in. So we have a subgraph that's ID starts with DJU. And now we can check. So it's this one. So we can get the other one. So that's the mainnet one. So we want to kind of combine with the Arbitrum one that's not indexed. Maybe we can ping our SREs. What else is indexing? To index faster. I think it's just not optimized. We'll see. But anyways, like to make the point, what we can do is basically just copy paste this one and rename it to Arbitrum, and then switch to endpoint and sorry here. A pretty is complaining because I probably need to that ident. Still, what's the problem? So, column. Very good. Yeah, YAML, fun with YAML. So now we did this. Let's see where we are in the terminal. Just the main one. Terminal. Okay. Yeah, what we can do now is basically run this search death thing again. And you can see if our query still works. And it does. Now what happened now is that we say graph client that there are two subgraphs, and now graph client combines these subgraphs naively. Actually, I think what happens is that when I send this query, it's just the last subgraph used, as far as I know. Yeah, this one is on Arbitrum. I know that subgraph is on Arbitrum. So let's see if I can actually prove my hypothesis. So if I switch that up. And I send the same query again. Yeah. Then I see the ones that are on Ethereum Mainnet. Okay. So that's happening. Like if I don't do anything and just do two endpoints, the graph client will just try to combine them. But since they are schema identical, it will end up just like using the last one, which is not what we want. So like so in order to make that a little bit more interesting, or like we can start to write additional type definitions. So here what's happening is we can extend the schema. So while looking at that schema here, where was it? Here on the left side. That's actually the one. We can basically, that's a cool thing that I don't know if that's technique. Yeah, that's probably the technique is schema stitching. Then we can take a schema and start to extend it and say like, oh, we actually want to add a new field. Actually, for that one, I need to run this again here. So I'm again in the graph client, search def, and I see this. When I look at the schema here in the Explorer, I have all these fields. But what I want is now, I want to have a way to find out on which chain this subgraph is published. It's a little bit meta, right? So because I have like the same subgraph, how can I say it? So subgraphs is the one thing that I query, but it's also the content of the query. Yeah, you will get it when I go through. Okay. So that's what we do. We can write these additional type definitions where we can extend the schema. That's actually pretty cool. You can just go here and say like, okay, now I also want to have an enum that has a chain, and I want to extend the type subgraph. To understand this a little bit better, when we do search for subgraphs, or when we look at the real schema here, and then you see when we search for subgraphs, where is it? Yeah, here we go. That it returns an array of a subgraph. That says, well, we can now extend that type. So we can say like, if there is a subgraph returned, then that also can contain a chain, and if the chain will be of the type of that enum, so it's either Arbitrum or Mainnet. And then the second step is to extend the query type that we add a new cross subgraphs query on top. But let's see how that works. If I save this, I don't know if a graph client actually does auto update. And then I should see here cross subgraphs basically. Not yet. Okay. Let's do it again. See, now we have these cross subgraphs here. And also in the result of cross subgraphs, we have this deployed chain. It's also nice, like if you know how to do, like it's very quickly we can start to enhance the schema without actually needing to touch the subgraph. I think it's pretty powerful by itself as a technology to really separate concerns of like, okay, this is front-end code that's about displaying stuff, and that's logic that happens otherwise. So I really like that feature, and I used that also before I joined the graph in my Web 2 projects. But there's one. So when we send that query, and now we have this deployed chain field, and we send the query. The deployed chain field is null. I mean, kind of obvious because we just added it to the schema, but we didn't tell the graph client how to get to that information. So that's the next steps. That we need to write so-called additional resolvers. So we added first the graphs, like again to this YAML file. And I used this utils folder, I don't know why. Probably how we do it, and added graph client, and then add a resolvers file. Okay. And I just copy paste this one. And also, interesting. Also, Sahaj said that I need to so this is the working code. I also need to, on the subgraph, fill the deployed chain field. So what's happening here? That seems to be like a lot of magic. Go it quickly the README also, so I don't forget. Yeah. So that everybody can just copy paste. So let's go through that code. So first of all, we hook it in here. So that's actually intuitive so far. And then we have that thing. So it imports the resolver from the generated graph client thing. We define the possible chains. And then here, so a GraphQL resolver is the code that's being run if a field is queried. So like, let's follow the subgraph example. So we saw before here in the query, that subgraph entity has now a field, probably on the bottom, yeah, deployed chain, see, and so that's the entity in the schema that has a deployed field. There's a field called deploy chain. So whenever GraphQL server tries to find out what's behind that field, it would run that code. So that's the definition. So it's in subgraph deploy chain, or like query cross subgraphs. It's filled. So here it's just like we just find the root of the query and set it in, and then here we actually, this is the cross subgraphs. It's the new top level query that we create. But what I do here is like I go through that chains, loop over that chains, send for each chain, send that query that you saw before. I just forward all the stuff that I get in here, like root, args, context, info, without kind of thinking about it. And then I wait for it, and then I add. I loop through all the results, and then I add this deployed chain from that loop here, or from the map, and then I flat, and I combine the results from both queries. So here it sends both. It goes like Arbitrum sends the query, Mainnet sends the query, then I combine them on the and return it in one. That's happening here. Is that clear, or what is that? That's a little. I think that's a little bit a complex thing here to understand. That's okay. It's clear. Okay, so that happens. So I write that code. So you see again here, we could basically write whatever we want. We could also say like I can show you later what funny stuff we can do. But going back, I think I need to restart the thing here. Uh-oh. Sorry about chain. Interesting. I think that doesn't work like this. But like this works. I know that one works. Now we have the deploy chain. So what's not working yet is this one, but this one works. See. So cross subgraphs. So if you send this new top level query cross subgraphs, that code is run. That goes through, sends all these queries, combines them, enhances the field with cross subgraphs, and that's it. And then we're there. So I have now a combined query with data from Arbitrum and Mainnet. Boom. Nice. In 1 hour. Yeah, nice. So I can build. Nice, okay. Okay, build. Yeah, I can bring it also to the front end, basically. I need to change the query to also do cross subgraphs. Build the graph client again. Subgraphs, change this. I think I can then do subgraph dot. Oh yeah. Yeah, we need to bring this in, obviously, this file. Nice. Okay. That looks good. Let's see if it works in the front end. Nice. All right. I think was the last thing. Some helpers here. Yeah. Cool.
Question. As far as the using the endpoint with the API key there inside of that, I assume that's like kind of hidden away with Graph Client if you were to move this into like when you actually build it. So essentially it's hiding the API key.
No.
Okay.
We would see these queries here actually. Seeing here is.
So for people listening that might want to consider, like for production, right, we want to maybe hide that API key some way. You mentioned like using like server-side rendering with Next.js, I think, before. But is there anything else you can do? Because with Graph Client, you can hide the API key somehow, correct?
Yes. Okay, I can show you this. So what I would do is using the so-called feature server-side. And although I'm not sure if I'm probably not using app router here. So I go to the classic one. Actually, I think the example is in here. Yes. Get server-side props. Okay. So in the simplest one is like to use this get server-side props. I mean, the more documentation about it is on Next.js. Let's see, get that props. So that's stuff that runs only on the server. There are advantages and disadvantages. You can run it, but like what you basically can do is like you can hide the API key from the front end. So let's see if that would work. So I go here. I simply need to add this function. I wonder why we want to have this SDK outside or inside this. So we do the same. So we can move this away. So we can say, okay, do subgraphs and the data. And then if I do this, the data is added as a argument to the page. So let's say if we can do this, properly type it. Data. This out. Yeah, that's it. Screen. And now see, we don't have any graphs.com in here anymore. That being said, I mean, that only works because of Next.js and because we run it on the server. So like this is not a fully decentralized solution, but it's kind of a central, it's a good enough solution. I mean, also to discuss this a little bit is, although that works, if someone would start to send 1 million requests just to this endpoint, like it still would send a query to the graph network with the API key that I'm not exposing it anymore, but like that query key could still get drained. So it's not a perfect solution, but yeah, it works. So if that's a concern, I would say like actually let's see if that one. Yeah. What I want to say is like what's actually much more important in terms of like trying to get the query key secured is or the API key is to click here on the API key and go to security and add restrict subgraphs. So
that way basically it just won't be used for another subgraph. And it kind of defeats the point of someone taking it. Yeah.
Can head this to so at least it's a little bit less interesting. But like, I mean, one of the things that people are afraid of is basically if a malicious actor really wants to drain an API key in order to do harm. That doesn't help here at all. So this doesn't help. But on the other hand side, we can also say, like, there's always the possibility that someone just DDoSes your page. Funny enough, I hear that a lot of Web3 protocols that have bug bounties on their websites receive from hackers and saying like, hey, your website is not secure against DDoS attacks. Which is, I don't know, like, anyways, super hard, if not impossible, to properly protect against this. So, yeah, in the worst case, if you get the feeling that the API key is abused, then you can just like delete it or regenerate. Is that a good answer?
Yeah, thank you. That's a good answer.
Okay. I quickly need to make a 5 minutes break to get some water. But then after that, I would actually love to dig a little bit into that current setup, because there is also some bad stuff. I mean, I have the cross subgraphs custom query with custom resolvers, but I also would like to still be able to query both subgraphs. So I'm now asking Sahaj actually, and just seeing later on how we can change that. But yeah, see you in a second.
Cool. Yeah, let's do a 5 minute break and then we'll come back in.
Graph client thing. And I just sent the old query. Subgraphs. I want to see deploy chain, then it errors. See, deploy chain not found. Now the question is, how can we fix that? So I would say, so I'm pretty, so it seems like that the GraphQL error is triggered here. Funny enough, is like that the GraphQL is cool. You can have like the data, but also errors. So that's actually, I think I like this. But like that, the deploy chain is not found. It looks like it's exactly this error message. And then we can say, well, let's see if it's really that error message. Yeah, it is. Okay. So I will now start to just investigate. So what we actually do have here. Do we have a root? Try to log that one. I wonder if I can go into a watch mode here. No, okay. So now when I send this query, I have the root, but that doesn't help much. And so I need to probably have, I'd say maybe context or info, more important stuff. Hey. Well, I don't know. Do we still have the guild people on the call? So hi, and Yasin.
What?
Ah, nice. Okay, so we have that error that deployed chain is not found when I just sent this query here. I wonder like why, or I think it's somewhere in that the root does not have it.
Can you try context? Because sometimes root does not have it, the context has it. So it's like, root.deployed chain. If not, then do like context.deployed chain. Yeah, if you're printing both of them, yeah, let's see which one has it.
Oh, it's not even like.
I don't think it's
Both. You know, I mean, also to be, I'm not in this cross subgraph query. I'm in a normal query.
Oh, that could be another reason why. Because
So can I
yeah. There's like a way where like you can inject context for every handler. Let me find the docs for it.
That's so I kind of want to have this, and I want to know which source that is currently queried, and then I can resolve it.
Yeah. Yeah.
I like live coding. Who finds it first?
So within your URL, I'm sending an example, someone.
Okay.
So look at that example. So you see he does like context.chain name. So that's something that's injected within your context of that. So you can do context.deployed chain, part of your URL, and try that.
Yeah, but that one comes from the SDK. When the SDK is built, here context is added. No, I don't know.
I think the generation should add it. If it doesn't, I will have to ask Arda, but I think it's too late for him right now.
Where is he? In Istanbul.
I don't think he's online on Slack.
Okay. Okay, so it's chain name, but how is it? This one.
This is just for the typings. This is like, the resolver typings that you get. It's just for that. Like we can add that and it will just be more like dev friendly.
Yeah, okay, let's do this.
Yeah.
Right, if I do this, then the chain name will be in the context, and this one works, right? Okay, let's see. Yeah. This chain name. But I'm not sure if it's now actually populated already. No,
No, nothing.
it's not arriving. So I wonder, like, I looked at that example that you sent over. Cross examples. Yeah, see, that chain name is kind of it's here. It's added up. So what I basically want is, like, if I'm in that resolver here, I want to have access to the graph client config, so I know on which source this query is executed. Not so easy, huh?
Yeah, I don't know the answer right away. I will have to ask Marva. Because the way I have it done in the past is like I just prefix my subgraphs. And then for the dedicated ones, I just get like, if I want to combine queries, then it combines for the ones I want.
So prefix, you say?
Yeah. Like I usually just prefix them.
Okay, let's prefix. How does prefixing work?
So basically, like your queries will have. Let me give you an example. Hang on.
Let's see.
So if you look that example up, we're basically prefixing, in this example, uni to Uniswap subgraph. So you can prefix like the chain name and the transforms. You need to install like this package for this to actually work.
Okay, nice. That's what I wanted to do. Okay, so it's on. Okay, in the same line as handler.
Yeah.
Prefix, and I would say like, yeah, Arbitrum. And then I do this one. Mainnet. And then okay. Nice. That's what I wanted to do today. The prefixing. Uh-oh. Uh-huh. So the types are also now prefixed, it seems. Huh?
Everything is prefixed for now. So we have to we can ignore some types. This is more involved with config that we have to set up.
So that was main. I need to rewrite this thing with this actually is good. The here. Where's the problem blockade? Oh. Uh-huh. Subgraphs für aber noch ins Schema. Okay, I see. What else? Oh, already good. Okay, now let's see it. That schema. Actually surprising. I was thinking that we have.
Reload. Maybe we should reload.
No, interestingly not. It seems to prefix the schema, like the types, but not the fields. I want to have the opposite. I want to have merge the types, but prefix the fields.
Yeah, let me.
Probably not followed fully your example here. Include root operations. That's what I need.
Yeah.
Okay, I got it. What else? Are there documentations about this prefix thing? Probably, huh?
Yeah, there are docs about transform. Let me put those in the chat.
Mesh transform prefix. Or I can ask AI. Oh, okay, I knew that already. Mode pair.
I don't think you need to do anything to the mode.
Yeah, well, I think it's include types. I can just say I don't want to change the types. I only want to do the root types.
Yeah, you can do that because since the subgraphs are the same, right? So you can disable include types and then just do.
Let's see what happens now. So I have the schema. Yeah, this is what I wanted. So I have the cross subgraphs that's I defined. The rest is properly prefixed, but I can try to not. Still think this is a bit ugly here. I can try to ignore the false. See what happens. But then it will probably yell at me. Yeah, exactly. But I have to say, like, this chat knows what I could renames. Yeah, now I would need to remove these prefixes here again. Oh, cool. That's what I wanted. It's actually cool. Actually, it's super cool. Nice. Okay. That's what I wanted. That's actually what I wanted to do today. If anybody has an idea what else we could now start to formulate. Oh yeah, I wanted to show you maybe stupid resolvers. I mean, we can also do funny stuff like random. I could just like have a random thing, and I could just say very random this. So I can just like start to move stuff into my resolvers for whatever reason. Okay, nice stuff. Okay, yeah. Does that help? Is that clear? Do you use it? Do you want to use Graph Client in your next project? It's too complicated. Too complicated. Okay. Yeah, but I think we can wrap it up actually.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's like a powerful tool, especially for like front end devs that have like complex interactions with subgraphs. So, but yeah, it's a little bit of a learning curve, I think. But yeah, that was a really good overview, and I appreciate the live coding too. That's always fun to watch. You killed it, Simone.
Thank you so much. Yeah, thanks for the
Cool.
patience.
Absolutely, yeah. Thank you so much, Simone, for coming on. I really appreciate it, guys. Thank you guys for staying for a longer session. Yeah, thank you, Sahaj and Yasin. You guys are awesome. The guild's awesome. And yeah, I hope that was valuable for you guys. And yeah, we'll be back next week. Actually, next week we are not doing Graph Builders office hours because of the holiday. Or no, sorry. Next week, I think we do, right? I'm trying to remember. We'll check. There was like some talk about changing it. So next week We do. We have Nazar coming on. It's the following week that we won't be here. But yes, thank you guys so much. And yeah, if you guys have any questions, yeah, feel free to reach out to either me or Simone or Marcus, and we will help you guys out. So thank you guys.